Hello mga ka-learners! In the previous lesson, you just learned that there are hundreds of languages spoken in the Philippines. Of all the many languages spoken in our country, which one is our national language? Do you know how we came to have one? Are you familiar with how it was developed? Are you aware of the many issues surrounding its development and use? Now that you know how important a national language is for a country and its people, it is time to discuss our very own national language. In this lesson, we will discuss the selection and development of Filipino as our national language. One day, I overheard three kids from my neighborhood, Paulo, Sheila, and Dennis, arguing about the Philippine national language. This is how their discussion went. Let's watch this.
It's Filipino.
It's Tagalog.
You're both wrong. It's Filipino. Our national language is Filipino. It's in the old textbook my mother gave me.
I'm sure our national language is Tagalog. My brother read from a book which, he said, is written in national language. It sounds just like Tagalog.
Hay nako, the national language of the Philippines is Filipino. Everyone knows that. It's totally different from either Filipino or Tagalog.
Kids, stop fighting. You were all right in a way, but in a way, you were all wrong.
Huh? What?
What do you mean, miss?
There have been so many arguments even on social media about our national language. Is it Tagalog, Filipino, or Filipino? Which of the kids are correct? All of the children are right in a way, but they are also all wrong in a way. Why? Well, let's review the statements made by each child. Paulo said that the national language of the Philippines is Filipino. He is right in a way. Our national language was indeed originally called Filipino. This was decades ago, however. Filipino used to be the name of our national language. It is no longer true today, so he is also wrong. Sheila said that the national language is Tagalog. Well, in a way, she is right because our national language was originally derived from the Tagalog language, but it is different from Tagalog, so she is not entirely right. Of all three children, Dennis gave the most accurate answer. The official name of the national language of the Philippines today is indeed Filipino. This is the term used in both the 1973 and 1987 Philippine Constitution to refer to the national language of the Philippines. However, Dennis was wrong when he said that Filipino is totally different from Filipino and Tagalog. As we have discussed, our national language used to be called Filipino and was derived from Tagalog. Even before the Spaniards came to our country, our ancestors were already using different languages. They were divided into different groups who lived in different parts of the islands. They were dark and curly-haired people living in the mountains. They spoke a different language from the fishermen living by the sea. There were also farmers in the different islands who spoke different languages. When the Spaniards came, instead of establishing a national language, they even encouraged language differences among Filipinos so that they could have better control over them. However, they established one language, Spanish, as the official medium of communication to be used in formal schools, religious ceremonies, and government transactions. Thus, Spanish words became part of many local languages and dialects. When the Americans took over, they made sure that Filipinos learned how to speak English. They considered education in English a useful way to unify a people that spoke many different languages and dialects. So teachers taught English all over the country. This was the only language used for instruction. English became the first national language of the Philippines. After some time, people in the government began seriously discussing the need for a national language. They argued that it was necessary for national solidarity and independence. This issue was brought up in the Constitutional Convention held at the time. As a result, the 1935 Constitution provided at last for the development and adoption of a common national language based on one of the existing native dialects. In 1937, President Quezon proclaimed Tagalog as the basis of the national language. He believed that having our own national language would help resolve differences among Filipinos who spoke different languages and dialects. He also wanted the Filipinos to speak a language not borrowed from the Spaniards or the Americans. He even declared August 13 to 19 of every year as the National Language Week or Linggo ng Wika, in honor of the Philippine national language. For these reasons, Manuel L. Quezon is known to this day as the father of the Filipino language. After serious deliberations on the studies that they conducted, the National Language Institute selected Tagalog as the basis of the national language. The reasons why Tagalog was chosen were the following. Number 1, Tagalog is widely spoken and is the most understood language in all the regions of the Philippines. It is spoken in Manila, Central, and South Central Luzon, the islands of Marinduque and Mindoro, and some parts of Mindanao. Number 2, it is not divided into dialects like Visayan, for example. Number 3, Tagalog literature is the richest. More books are written in Tagalog than in any other native language. Number 4, Tagalog has always been the language of Manila, the capital city, even before the Spaniards came. Number 5, Tagalog was the language of the Revolution and the Katipunan, two events in our history that we can truly be proud of. The controversy about the Philippine national language continued. The use of Tagalog as the basis for the national language offended many Filipinos. To show that the national language was not really Tagalog, but just based on it, it was named Filipino in 1959. Filipino was gradually introduced as the medium of instruction all over the country. Filipino children were made to study both Filipino and English and were taught all their lessons in these two languages. This was called the bilingual education policy. Bilingual means two languages. But many Filipinos still would not accept Filipino. Do you know why? Look at the following words: salumpuit, salimpapaw, sipnayan, salongsuso. Do you know what these words mean? Salumpuit means chair. Salimpapaw means airplane. Sipnayan means mathematics. Salongsuso means brazier. Can you imagine using these words in your daily conversations? Have you ever heard somebody say in ordinary speech, "Binigyan ako ng salumpuwit sa salimpapaw upang mag-aral ng sipnayan"? Can you imagine a mother saying to her young daughter, "Iha, kailangan mo nang magsuot ng salongsuso"? Many people found these words funny and ridiculous. Filipino became very artificial because many new words were created to be included in it that nobody really wanted to use. Furthermore, many people protested that it was still very similar to Tagalog. To solve the problem, a new language was proposed. This time, it would still be based mainly on Tagalog, but it would include many elements from the different local and foreign languages spoken in the Philippines. The 1973 Constitution stated that the new language to be called Filipino should be developed and eventually adopted as the common national language of the Philippines. Meanwhile, Filipino and English would remain the official languages of the country. Finally, in 1987, it was declared in the Constitution that the national language of the Philippines is Filipino. As it evolves, it shall be further developed and enriched on the basis of existing Philippine and other languages. Filipino was to be used in all official communications. It would also be the medium of instruction in schools. It would serve as an instrument of unity and peace for national progress. Assigned to look after the development of Filipino is the Commission on the Filipino Language, Komisyon sa Wikang Filipino. The Commission is mandated to undertake, coordinate, and promote research for the development, propagation, and preservation of Filipino and other Philippine languages. On July 15, 1997, President Fidel V. Ramos declared August of every year as National Language Month. He chose August because President Manuel L. Quezon, considered the father of the national language, was born on August 19. Do you think that more Filipinos are using or are able to speak our wikang pambansa today? Let's check what we learned about why Filipino is our national language. Choose the correct answer. Number 1. Even before the Spaniards came, our ancestors were already speaking a common language. Correct? Incorrect. Number 2. The first national language of the Philippines was Tagalog, Filipino, Filipino, English. Number 3. Filipino was not accepted by many Filipinos because it was still mostly Tagalog-based. It contained many artificial words that nobody wanted to use. Both of the above, the first and second statements. It was based on a foreign language. Number 4. The blank Constitution proclaimed Filipino the official national language of the Philippines. 1935, 1973, 1987, 1945. Number 5. Filipino was created in 1987 and is now a fully developed language. Correct? Incorrect. The first national language of the Philippines was English. A new national language was developed in the 1930s, but because it was based on Tagalog, many non-Tagalog speakers did not accept it. President Manuel L. Quezon helped bring about the development of a new language that would be the official Philippine national language. For this reason, he is known to this day as the father of the national language. The national language was named Filipino in 1959 in order to correct the misconception that it was really plain Tagalog. Many new words were coined for Filipino, but these were too difficult and artificial, and many people did not accept them. A new national language was conceived to be named Filipino. This was provided for in the 1973 Constitution. Meanwhile, English and Filipino remained the official languages of the country. The new language, Filipino, was finally proclaimed as the official national language of the Philippines in the 1987 Constitution. According to the Constitution, Filipino is to contain borrowings from the different local and foreign languages spoken in the country. There it is, mga ka-learners! You have just learned how Filipino became our national language. So what exactly is Filipino? Tune in to the next episode for more. Hanggang sa muli!